$100,000. For most people, that number feels far away, almost unrealistic. So they do what everyone else does. They save a little each month, they try to be responsible, they tell themselves they're on the right track. But here's the uncomfortable truth. At that pace, it could take you 10, 15, even 20 years just to reach your first $100,000. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because no one ever showed you how the game actually works. Because making your first $100,000 isn't about working harder. It's about understanding speed. And once you see what really controls that speed, you'll realize something. You don't need more time. You need a better system. Let's break this down. Imagine you decide to get serious. You commit to saving $500 every single month. No excuses, no skipping, just consistency. Sounds solid, right? But here's what happens. If you do that and you don't invest it, it will take you 7 years to reach $100,000. 16 years. That's not a plan. That's a delay. Now, let's make one small change. Instead of letting your money sit still, you give it a basic return. Let's say 5% per year. Nothing aggressive, just simple growth. Same $500 a month. But now, you don't need 16.7 years anymore. You need 12.2 years. Over 4 years saved, without working harder, without earning more, just by letting your money move. But here's where things really shift. Because what if you don't just optimize your money, you optimize your behavior? Let's change another variable, not the return, but the amount. Instead of saving $500 a month, you increase it to $1,000. Same lifestyle discipline, same 5% return, but a larger gap between what you earn and what you spend. And now, everything speeds up. You don't need 12 years anymore. You need about 7 years. You just cut your timeline almost in half. And this leads to the first key insight. The more you save each month, the faster you reach $100,000. Because every extra dollar you keep isn't just money, it's time. So the real question becomes, how do you actually increase your monthly savings? It all comes down to one equation. Savings equals income minus expenses. If you want to move faster, you have to expand that gap. And there are only 3 ways to do it. First, reduce your expenses. Cut what doesn't truly matter. Subscriptions you don't use, impulse spending, lifestyle choices made to impress others. Not everything, just the waste. Second, increase your income. This is where the real leverage is. Learn valuable skills, find better opportunities, build additional income streams. Because saving from a higher income is always easier than cutting from a low one. Third, combine both. Reduce the big, unnecessary costs while increasing your earning power. That's when your savings rate expands the fastest. And this is where timing matters. In your 20s and 30s, your priority should be increasing income, because this is when your growth potential is highest. Your skills scale, your opportunities expand. But later in life, that becomes harder, so the strategy shifts. You focus more on efficiency, on optimization, on protecting what you've built. But the principle never changes. The more you keep each month, the faster you move. Now, that's only half the equation, because even if you save a lot, if your money doesn't grow, you're still leaving years on the table. Let's go back to the same example. You're saving $1,000 a month. At a 5% return, it takes you about 7 years to reach $100,000. But what if, instead of 5%, you could achieve 20% per year? Now everything changes. You don't need 7 years anymore. You need around 5 years. Same savings, same discipline, but a completely different outcome. This is the second lever, return. And this is where time compresses. At low returns, you move slowly. At higher returns, you accelerate. And over time, that gap becomes massive. Now zoom out. Imagine your goal isn't $100,000, but $1 million. At 5%, it could take you over 30 years. At 20%, that drops to around 14 to 15 years. That's not just faster, that's a completely different life. And this is why investing is not optional. Not to gamble, not to chase hype, but to understand how assets grow, how risk works, and how to make your money productive. Because once your money works for you, you're no longer trading time for income. You're building a system that runs in the background. And when you combine both levers, high savings and strong returns, something powerful happens. Your progress stops being slow. It becomes exponential. $100,000 is no longer difficult. It becomes predictable. You don't need a miracle to reach your first $100,000. You need a system. A system where you consistently increase the gap between what you earn and what you spend. And you consistently grow that gap through intelligent investing. Do that long enough, and $100,000 is no longer impressive. It's inevitable. And once you reach it, you'll realize something. That wasn't the goal. It was just the beginning. Most people will understand this and still do nothing. But if you're different, if you actually apply it, then your timeline changes and your future starts moving faster.